Thank you for the introduction, and hello everyone. I'm Juliana, and I've had lymphedema in my left leg for 12 years. I'm so happy to be here and to be meeting all of you. It's nice to see other faces that are and will be making a difference in the lives of other patients. I'm gonna tell you my lymphedema story so you will understand how I got to be standing in front of you today. I was raised by a single mother who did everything in her power to make sure I'd be able to succeed in this world. I was taught that education was the way to independence, and that sports and good grades were a way to get scholarships to pay for school. So I knew from a very young age that I would pay for my post-secondary education with my brain and with my legs. Even before I got to high school, I had been approached by coaches that were interested in my ability to change the pace of a game and to never back down from a challenge. Throughout high school, I pushed myself to be better. I was ashamed of any B's on my report card or any game or practice where I felt like I didn't perform well. In high school, I had coaches from universities around Canada and the States that were interested in recruiting me to play soccer and or hockey. My life was tough and I worked very hard, but I knew that my life was on an upward trajectory and that with discipline, I would eventually make it. I thought one day I would be satisfied with my success. In August 2010, I was moving into my freshman dorm on a beautiful campus in North Carolina. We arrived earlier than other people for soccer's preseason, and I was so nervous, but I was also excited to finally be somewhere that I could grow and learn as an athlete, a student, and as a person. Freshman season was difficult, to say the least. My coach chose to start me in the position where our team captain would normally start, and she didn't like me very much. But personally, I performed well, and by spring semester, I felt like I was going to make it through the growing pains of moving countries and living alone. I was awarded Freshman of the Year for my conference, and I led the conference in the most assists, which is my favorite thing to do, setting other people up for a goal. I went into spring of my freshman year with high hopes and a renewed sense of purpose. I just needed to survive my exams and get to the next year. This is when life took a major turn. During a spring exhibition game, an opposing player landed on the top of my left foot with the heel of her cleat. Like most injuries, I adjusted my cleats, pushed through the pain, and finished the game. I was at a place in life where winning this game was the most positive thing I had, so I did whatever I could to keep going. It was in the days to follow that I realized that this injury was unlike any other that I'd sustained in my years of playing sports. That night, I noticed the swelling from my foot had crept up to my knee, and the skin on my leg was an eerie blue color. The athletic trainers at my school addressed this with with electrostim and ice, but after noticing no change, I was rushed to the ER. In the next couple of weeks, the doctors were looking for a blood clot endlessly with ultrasounds and whatnot, but they couldn't find any. And eventually I was diagnosed with lymphedema. The pain in my foot was so intense, and there were times when I couldn't even walk to class. And being wrapped and unwrapped, or being wrapped and rewrapping all the time was incredibly difficult trying to get around campus. And it wasn't just the swelling and the pain in my foot and my leg. I was exhausted constantly, and I was dealing with extreme brain fog, which affected my social life and my academic life. I started seeing a lymphedema therapist who did MLD with me, but the swelling didn't subside, nor did the blue color. It wasn't until I came back to Canada for the summer that I received the news that I had also been diagnosed with May-Thurner syndrome, meaning my left iliac vein had collapsed. That's the biggest vein coming out of your leg, and it was collapsed 90%. I was told to just try to enjoy the summer, and of course, the situation made everything miserable. I fell deeper into despair and isolation as time went on. By the time I got back to school that fall, my only focus was fixing my leg and getting my life back on track. I was told by my surgeons that once my vein was reopened, that all the symptoms would be alleviated and things would go back to normal. I missed most of my sophomore season because I needed to fix the vein before I could start playing again. My first surgery was a balloon angioplasty on my left iliac. It was a fairly simple procedure. That night in my dorm room, I remember the color of my leg had gone back to normal, and the swelling had decreased significantly. I was hopeful that this was just a big bump in the road and I'd return to playing soon. However, the next day I noticed my leg had turned back to the blue color and the swelling was back to its pre-surgery state. I went back to the surgeons for a stent placement in the collapsed iliac vein. But when I woke up from that second surgery, I was told that they miscalculated and they didn't have the right size stent for my vein, and they couldn't complete the procedure. A third surgery was scheduled with a different surgeon in Savannah, Georgia, and finally, a proper stent was placed in my iliac vein. This was done 8 months after my initial injury, and by this time, the damage to my lymphatic system was just too great. The swelling in my left leg did not subside, as I was told. There was only a handful of games left in the season at this point, but instead of quitting and rerouting, as one might think I would, I put my head down and demanded more of my body than it was capable of giving. I was determined to play soccer. As soccer was the only source of happiness in my life. So I played the rest of those games. I scored some goals and I got some yellow cards. Once soccer was finished, I needed to keep competing. So instead of resting and letting my well-being come first, I added another sport. I joined the women's varsity lacrosse team. My soccer coach agreed to share me with the lacrosse coach, and they agreed to pick up part of my scholarship. Although this decision seemed to benefit everybody, it was way too much strain on my body. And at the time, I wasn't getting the medical care that I needed. I played for 6 seasons in the NCAA total as an integral part of both of my teams after my injury. I pushed through daily excruciating pain, often crying myself to sleep at night after games because the pain was just too much for me. But I felt like I was operating at 20% of my capacity, my normal capacity, and that just wasn't good enough for me. So the mental and emotional deterioration had become a part of me. I was using over-the-counter circulant compression daily, which was better than not wearing compression, but it definitely didn't get the job done very well. And my toes didn't have individual compression and remained extremely swollen and painful. Finally, my family doctor here in Canada connected me with my fitters at Durham Medical, Anne and Nicola. Little did I know that these ladies would become one of the healthcare anchors that provide me with amazing support. By the time I got to my last semester of my undergraduate degree, I was unsatisfied with my achievements. Though I did all I could, I felt I had only accomplished the bare minimum. I had spent all of my breaks in the hospital, myself, and searching for solutions. So I was derailed from my aspirations of medical school. I wasn't prepared, but I needed to make a decision of what to do next. At a national chemistry conference in Dallas, Texas, in the spring before graduation, I presented my undergraduate research, and I was connected to a professor at the University of Alabama, who I thought would be my mentor and my source of hope for the foreseeable future. I went to Alabama with every intention of joining Dr. B's lab for the PhD program. I was excited and energetic about this new prospect. She helped me set up my life at Alabama. I felt like I was finally getting the support I needed and that this angel in my life was going to help me through. Sadly, this was short-lived, as even before my first semester came to a close in grad school, my mentor received an unexpected terminal diagnosis and passed away. She wasn't even 45. There I was, alone and questioning my future once again. Should I quit and go home? I knew if I moved back to Canada, I would no longer have the opportunity of getting lymphedema surgeries under the health care provided to me by the university. And at this point, it was clear that my condition was severe enough to significantly impact my quality of life forever if I didn't do something. Knowing that lymphedema had tested my will to live, I couldn't return home the way I was. That prospect was just way too dark. And I decided that this was another opportunity to put my head down and push through. My second semester at Alabama, I was adopted by another professor, and I started the PhD process. I completed my Master's of Science in Chemistry over the next 2 years. At this point, I had started planning for more lymphedema surgeries. I started to give myself more grace and began embracing the process. I started my LymphyFit Instagram account and sought to find others that were suffering the same way. My hope was that after the surgeries, I would return to Canada with my doctoral degree and that I would have a more functional lymphatic system, feeling like less of a failure. My first surgery for lymphedema was lymphovenous anastomoses, LVA, and that was in 2016, and it was successful. In the months to follow, my leg was more resilient. I could withstand more hours in lab, and this gave me the confidence in my surgeon to keep going with his plan of an omentum transplant to my left thigh. By January 2019, I had my omentum transplant, and it was the most traumatic experience I had had to date. I was completely horrified by the surgery, the extreme pain, and the effect it had on me. Again, I was forced to put my head down and push through. I only had about a year left to recover from the procedure and complete my PhD. During this time, I hit several obstacles that derailed me, including a global pandemic that shut down my labs before I could finish my research. I had to get special access to the chemistry department and teach myself how to use a brand new instrument that I hadn't used before in order to get the final bits of data I needed to finish my dissertation. The final stretch of my PhD was mainly writing. For months, I stared at my computer for over 12 hours every day. And finally, on December 8th, 2020, I defended my research via Zoom because of the many COVID restrictions. And thank God, because my leg was wrapped and elevated under the table, and I wasn't even wearing pants. How many people can say they defended their PhD with no pants on? I knew that throughout the process, my leg and body pain was only getting worse, but I had to push through so I could achieve at least one of the things I set out to accomplish since there were no improvements in my leg. The surgeon told me that it would take up to 2 years to see benefits, but I knew that it wasn't going well, and the pain only got worse, and I was deteriorating inside and out. I showed up back in Canada in 2021, highly educated, but I had nothing left in me. I felt like a shell of a person. I had put my whole life on hold to focus on healing at that point, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Since then, I've been pouring my life and myself into the lymphedema community. I've developed a close relationship with my anchors, including my doctors, therapists, fitters, other lymphies. Sorry, I lost myself. Other lymphies and my partner, Jermaine, who's here with me today. And he helps me take care of my leg literally every day. I interact with multiple patients every day, and I have the opportunity to help them to get through the things that I didn't think I would get through, and to me, that is priceless. One of my fitters, Nicola, who's actually here with me, has done so much for me over the years. Yes, she measures my leg and orders my compression, but her impact on my well-being far surpasses the responsibilities of her role. She has been an integral part of my treatment and care, and I'm very grateful for her support. Nicola helps me find the best possible lymphedema products and then make sure they fit well. As the field of lymphedema research is constantly changing, it's important to have a healthcare system that is dedicated and open to finding products that suit the customized needs of each individual patient. I currently have the best products and support available, like the Bauerfeind CuraFlow Class 3 custom knit garment. And yet, it's still a daily battle for me to go through life with this condition, and I cannot express enough how important it is to have proper fitting garments that are effective at managing swelling. Furthermore, having experienced myself and heard many horror stories about the treatments and the relationships with health professionals that do not take the time to learn what it's like to live with lymphedema and to educate their patients about what it's like to live life within lymphedema, I would stress to everyone here about how difficult it is to deal with this condition on your own. We all have a responsibility to ensure the care that we put into one another is intentional and directed, because without one another, this journey is very lonely and often leads to patients getting much worse. As this is a progressive condition, without constant education, treatment, focused care, it would be next to impossible to live life well. Every day I wake up and my leg is aching from inactivity. It's usually hot from the night compression, and we know that heat causes dilation of the vessels and more swelling. I lay in bed for a minute to say a prayer, and then I go to the bathroom. Then I come back to take my night compression off, and I roll up any wraps I used during the night so that they can be ready for the next use. If my leg is really bad, I will have to start my day with a cold shower and deep oscillation therapy before breakfast. Then I will put my sleeve on or wrap my leg in several layers of bandaging so that I can go stand in the kitchen and make some hot herbal tea, because since my omentum transplant, I haven't had a single day without abdominal pain and digestive issues. So tea helps my body throughout the day, and it seems to ease a little bit of the discomfort of having to digest food. No matter what I do during the day, I'm in pain and I'm swelling. However, the intensity of my pain and swelling varies based on the activity I'm doing. Every position and activity makes my leg progressively more uncomfortable, swollen, and painful over time, except laying down with my legs straight up in the air. Have you ever considered how difficult it is to need to live your entire life upside down? The other option is choosing to continue with life upright, but as every minute passes, you know your condition is progressing until you decide it's time to treat and elevate again. And by the end of the day, I'm typically struggling from pushing myself through normal everyday tasks, unless I have taken multiple breaks throughout the day for deep oscillation therapy, wrapping, compression pumps, manual massages, dry brushing, foam rolling, gentle exercises, cold showers, or any other form of treatment that I've learned over the years. For all my treatments, I've put a lot of effort into research and experimenting with methodology to establish their efficacy, and it's evident that the medical field is working towards a solution for us, but in the meantime, I think it's so important that we educate each other and uplift people struggling with lymphatic disorders. It is so much more than swelling, and more often than not, it is preventing the people that have it from living well because they don't know how to manage it on their own. Thank you to everyone here that cares enough about other people to help. Thank you to Bauerfeind for the opportunity to be a part of this event and giving us all the opportunity to learn from each other this week. And finally, thank you all for your attention.